Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you all managed to grab some lunch and have a quick break before you come back for the afternoon session, so thank you for joining us. Now we have a session that is titled Tech Dies, Ideas Live. And it's a collaboration between some really impressive companies. So please remember, if you hear anything interesting, go right ahead and use hashtag Lions Innovation. We love to hear your views on any form of social media which you like. So I am going to introduce there's a few people, so please bear with me because they're all very important. Let me just say this session is extremely special because it's a Lions Innovation first. It is being streamed around the world. It's actually, they're going to give you a bit more information about it, but it's actually being streamed on every single continent except Antarctica. And I have volunteered to go there with like a flag next year and represent. So we're all very, very excited, and this is a real first, so I hope that you look forward to it. And now I'd like to introduce, so bear with me, Eric Springer, who is the Chief Creative Officer of Innocean Worldwide, Paul Wilmington, CEO of Canvas Worldwide, Peter Berg, who is a writer, director, producer and actor at Film 45, Dan Saxton, Head of Content at VR Live, and Dean Evans, Chief Marketing Officer at Hyundai Motor America. So please give them all a warm welcome.
What a handsome crowd. Hello.
Check. Check one. Check two.
Exactly. Well, thank you all for coming. Tech Guys, Idea Lives. The whole point to this, the next 45 minutes, what we're going to talk about is the what versus the what, the how. So the what being the idea. It has to start with storytelling. It has to start with what will make it great and worth remembering. The how is the tech. Probably wasn't the easiest name to get approved to give a talk on, especially during the tech day when you say Tech Guys, Ideas Live. But I think that's the truth of the matter is that you have to start with the what in the storytelling. So I think the greatest example of what will probably steer us today, subservient chicken. After all these years, we're still celebrating that. It's been almost 10 years. The what there was you can boss around and have it your way, paid off Burger King with have it your way, with the chicken that obeyed every whim. But the how, and I don't know if anybody in this room can remember that how, not exactly sure how it came to life, not sure what the tech was, all you know is that I love that idea and I love them for doing it. So, speaking of which, we have a lovely little camera here. I know that Lucy just mentioned that this is, you're all part of a first today. This is the first time a CAN panel has ever been streamed, live streamed 360. So we're bringing that to 6 continents. We're bringing it to ad clubs and ad schools all over the world, including some friends in Ethiopia, the ad club of Ethiopia. They're joining us.
So can you imagine it? We brought them all the way here. They're here, kind of.
So with that, Mr. Paul, why don't we start talking?
Yeah.
I've sucked enough oxygen out of this room.
So let's get started. Speaking of ideas that outlive the tech that birthed them on our panel. What's wonderful about this panel is it's an incredibly diverse panel in the sense that we've got the director, the creative, the technologist, and we were hoping to link in the client. So you guys were involved in something that was quite exceptional, a real first. Dean, hi.
Good morning.
Hey,
Good afternoon.
this is Dean Evans, CMO of Hyundai, and he is beaming in from Las Vegas. He couldn't be with us, but again, technology. It's 4 a.m. there, Dean. Are you awake?
Barely, but yes. It's a great hour.
Welcome to Cannes.
Thank you. Nice to see you guys.
Yeah. So we did a first, or this group did a first really at this year's Super Bowl with Hyundai's Operation Banner, which brought soldiers stationed in Poland 6,000 miles away from their families to the Super Bowl in Houston, Texas, and surprised them by actually literally, as we're doing here, bringing them into that environment. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to show you what has now become a phenomenon on YouTube and around the world. We're going to show you Operation Better that ran in Super Bowl.
My wife Emily, my 4-year-old daughter Hadley. The hardest thing about this deployment, can't really explain it too well, just daddy's gotta go to work again.
I have my fiance Danielle and my 2-year-old son, just the world to me. It's tough for him to understand because he's used to me just being there.
I'm Corporal Trista Strouch. I've been on about 4 years now. Being away is pretty rough. I'm just worried about my son growing up and missing daily things that he does.
Wow, it gets me every time I get a lump in my throat. I've seen it like tens of times, and I've actually got a little lump there seeing it. What is really interesting about that was that at the end of the day, it took lots of technology to bring that idea to life. Yet, really, the only thing that 125 million people that were watching the Super Bowl, the largest single event anywhere in the world broadcast live, was the fact that it actually really inspired tears of joy. You know, if you think about that moment that was actually captured. Did the production need all that technology to pull off a live commercial, Peter? Tell us. You're the director of it. And,
In the case of this spot, we definitely needed the technology that they provided. It was a confluence of two, I think, really effective elements. One was an incredible idea, which was kind of to spin the classic soldier surprises family, right? We were talking yesterday, that's kind of like A plus B, is soldier surprise family. These guys are like, well, can we reverse that? Can the family surprise the soldier? Which was a novel idea, a simple idea, but a novel idea, and one that was, full of emotional potential. And that was appealing to me and my people. But then it came down to these guys because it was so technologically insane. The idea that we were going to do this made no sense, and I just sort of divorced myself from that process, and I just kept looking at these guys and asking, will it work? And they would say yes, and I would take them at face value. I would focus on the emotional aspect of the story, and these guys did a
because that's a
remarkable
really interesting point, Peter, you say, because that reconstruct of the ABVA, however you want to describe it, is a brilliant idea, but the reason that it's never happened is because you can't do it, because the troops are abroad and they're in all these far-flung countries.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. It's a genius idea, but it required technology. Dan, tell us a little bit about the technology. You're the technologist, but tell us some of the difficulties that were involved in this.
Pete's company hit us up with this idea. And we didn't know it was a Super Bowl thing. We had no idea the military was involved. We had no idea. It was just, is this possible? Can we do this? We're like, yes, we can do this. Okay. And then it's like, okay, let's figure this out. We can do it. We can get it over there. So, the real problem was, because we've been streaming live 360 for a long time, but the real problem for us, the challenge was to get these 3 streams of these 3 families over with limited resources. Having no internet, nothing at this Poland Air Force Base. So we had to come up with all of these different ways to do it. But to your point about the story, being the important part, we had the plan to have the soldier that walks in put on a VR headset But it made no sense, actually, because you can't see his face, you can't see her face. And that's the story, you gotta tell the emotion.
Yeah.
That was the important part. So we took that out of it, and they walked into this virtual suite.
Because that's a really interesting point, and just to allow Peter to come back in, I think that was a real insight, because if you had people with the goggles, you were going to miss that. Was that something, you know, that you worked collaboratively together as a whole team with Eric? You know, it was an important moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, when you make a commercial, and we're the production company, and you have the agency and the clients, and you generally make a commercial, there's always a little bit of kind of healthy tension where these guys want to push us, and we want to kind of just get it done because we're trying to just finish it, and they come up with all. So I was very vehement before the commercial about no changing of anything, and we have to stick to the plan. And then at the last minute, my editor and I were looking at the rehearsal, and we're like, these glasses don't really make any sense. We should lose them. So we had to go to Eric and totally hypocritically and be like, you know, I told you that we didn't think
No changes.
No changes. And he was, you know, smart enough to recognize that it was probably a good idea. We made that change.
That's great. I'm going to turn it to Dean. Dean, in the previous year, again, Eric's team, you know, actually it's on the same team here, we absolutely won the Super Bowl. So tell us from a client's perspective, that was in the year prior. We obviously had a different kind of approach to Super Bowl at that point. But tell us as a client, you were kind of sitting there, what was going through your mind about when Eric pitched this idea to you? Tell us a little bit what was going through your mind.
Have we lost our mind? No, I love the idea to begin with. I think Eric and I both agreed to that. You know, like you said, Paul, we were fortunate enough winning the year before with Ad Meter. I was good enough with taking the trophy home and saying, great. It's really usually hard to kind of follow up with the 1-2 punch. But when we did hear this, I thought this was a really great next punch. We have a brand mantra called Better Drives Us. And we really wanted to have that into the market in a very unique way and in a very memorable way. Or what Eric likes to coin, you know, how do we make this an act of the brand, not a TV commercial? And we really, I think, transitioned that concept in that full life that you just saw, and I was super impressed with the idea and obviously with the output.
Yeah, and truly it does take a community and a very brave client. So, you know, thank you for that, Dean. But I know for a lot of people it really did stretch, you know, the bounds of technical difficulty in every aspect. But talk through it, Eric, as the man who had the idea. Tell us a little bit about your journey through this.
Well, it's much like anything that we do for a living, but you try to come up with some kind of tension. Yeah. I think the tension that we set in that was we came up with this thought that the best moments of the Super Bowl won't happen on the field.
Yep.
They'll happen after the game because that's where our media was. So presenting that to the NFL or Fox Broadcasting, they were like, "What the hell are you talking about? No, you can't say that." It was like, you're only on page 1. Just get to like the 3rd page of the deck so we can talk through what we're going to do. And then as it unfolded, they totally understood what we wanted to do. And that's the power of the what. We keep going back to that. It's just what is the story. And once they heard the story, they let go of the thought of, oh my God, you can't say that the Super Bowl isn't going to be great. No, it's going to be great. There for a while, it didn't seem like it was going to be great. It looked like it was going to be a blowout, and nobody's going to hang around for the last part of it. But anyway, you start with that what, and then the tech, like we said. In fact, we pared down the tech, like we were talking about with the VR glasses. We just realized that got in the way of the story. So.
Yeah. But it's really interesting. I mean, just going through some of the technicals. No one had ever done a live edit during. That actually was filmed and was edited and ran as a 90-second at the end of the Super Bowl.
And approved.
Never ever, and approved by the NFL. We had the military involved. There was no internet in Poland. We had satellites for communications. There were 2 teams editing. in different locations. There were cables had to be laid, so this team were in a cubicle, what was it, a trailer outside the Super Bowl stadium, literally live editing and having to make decisions, having Dean make the client approval, but then we had the NFL, we had Fox, we had everything else. So we've never ever done before. I mean, I know Fox were, and the NFL were kind of worried, but we pulled it off. So again, testament to quite an amazing collaboration here. And the coordination that required. And many, many people beyond this room obviously deserve huge credit, so we send you the love. So let's actually evolve the conversation. So that obviously set a little bit of the context to why we actually talked about tech guys. Because at the end of the day, this was an amazing idea that was kind of facilitated by the technology. But hopefully, that will be certainly it'll be in one of my annals of things that I was involved in. But I won't remember the technology. I remember the idea, remember the emotion, remember that lump in your throat, remember the connectivity that we had. But so that's why we want to now evolve the discussion for the rest of this panel. So it was really interesting. Last year, we had entered into the titanium and integrated lines. You might remember it, but it was the Nivea Seagull. And it was actually became rather infamous on the Cannes Broadwalk because it flew around and it pooped suntan lotion on unsuspecting beachgoers, okay? Now, kudos to Nivea. Nivea's done some pretty cool things, but they definitely jumped the shark here, without question. And Sir John Hegarty, who was the president of the Titanium and Integrated Jury, kind of ironically, very sarcastically said we judged this with intensity, and then eventually he stopped and he said, "This is the most stupid thing I have seen in my life. I thought that Monty Python had entered it to spoof Cannes." So is this, so we use this as a bit of a hyperbolic example of maybe technology jumping the shark. But I wanted to throw it to Dan and just say, sometimes, we get seduced by technology, and that makes us do odd things, yeah? So there are a lot of people out there chasing shiny objects, okay? And why we thought it was rather controversial at Cannes to be technology guys in the Innovation Festival is because, so tell us a little bit about this kind of seduction in all things tech. Come on, Dan.
We're the tech guys. We're the seducers. We're the ones going, you should do it in VR. It'd be awesome. But now, because we've been doing live broadcast for 3 years in 360, and now it's at the point where VR is the buzzword, where before no one knew what it was, But now everyone's coming at us with all these ideas on, you should do this. And we have to be the seduction manager now. We have to say, it doesn't make sense in VR. Let's not. VR is a tool to tell the story. The story is the important part,
No, that's really interesting. Dean, what do you think about that idea of seduction manager on a business card? What do you think, Dean? Is that going to be a new job title in technology?
It is. It's my second business card, seduction manager, because I think too with the speed of technology today and how it is integrating into our lives, we sometimes maybe want to focus on the technology versus, what is our idea? And in our case, better drives us, and how do we really make sure that experience is coming through, and that's the guiding post for the idea. So that's really how we do it, right? Because there is so much technology. It's easy to chase the shiny object, but we got to always be focused around what are we really trying to deliver with that technology for sure.
That's great. And Peter, obviously as a director, you must have clients or people coming to you and saying, like, that's never been done before, can you do that? I mean, how do you kind of react to that? Have you got any anecdotes, any stories around that?
Well, I think that what we're finding as filmmakers is that they'll never say no.
Yeah.
There's nothing that you can ask him to do that he will say he can't do. And that's true for VR, that's true whether you're working for ILM up in Industrial Light and Magic or the Mill or any effects company now. The answer is always hell yes, we can do it. And generally they can do it. So really, you I think have an extra responsibility to kind of be vigilant about the emotional connection between the content and the material and the audience, because these guys can say, you know, yes to anything. There's literally nothing now you can think of that they will say no to. And I find myself trying to, you know, keep expectations in check and make sure first and foremost, I feel that we have some pathway to an emotional connection. Because there's nothing that, for a little bit of money, they can't do for you.
But it's interesting because we chatted about these first, because I think a lot of people want to be first. So, you know, I remember, you know, like 3D was, you know, 3D commercials, let's put it that way. There was that whole, did you ever do a 3D commercial? Were you ever asked to do one? Was there ever, you know, or that whole idea of, you know, it's the technology that's driving the idea, and then how do you kind of step in as a director and go, you know, where the hell's the idea?
Yeah, I mean, especially in movies, I've been asked to shoot films in 3D or do 3D transfers.
Yeah.
I've been asked to shoot segments of films like Deepwater Horizon in IMAX, which I really don't understand. We're going to shoot scenes in IMAX, not the entire film. And personally, I'm very skeptical. Just my aesthetic is not that technical. I'm not a tech freak, you know, and so I tend to be inherently skeptical of a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
In the case of Hyundai and what InOcean presented, that was different. You know, they led with this incredible idea, and the technology 100% was there to support. It was really a very, very sound, emotional idea. And if I feel that that's the case, I'll jump. If I feel that the technology is leading the idea, I'll probably take a pass.
And Eric, I mean, obviously, it's you've got an amazing group of you're building this amazing team at InOcean, technologists with, you know, what is that makeup now? You know, how do you bring those ideas? You know, when you were in the development of this idea or other ideas, you know, what is that role between the, you know, the technologist, let's say, and you know, what we used to be called the classic creative. I don't know what a classic creative is anymore. This kind of multi-dimensional person, but.
No, I think it's just, especially the younger creatives that we're tracking, it's just second nature for them. I mean, they live it. So when you live it, then you know how to use it. And that's the most important part, because that's when it becomes part of storytelling. But we all get seduced by it, you bastard. But the thing is, like, you know, everybody wants, oh, let's just do an app, or let's do this, and QR codes. When you were talking about 3D, like, yeah, 3 years ago, it was like everybody was buzzing about shooting Super Bowl in 3D.
Yeah.
Now you don't even find a TV anymore. It's equipped with 3D. It comes off, you know, it's crazy. So you just have to stay out in front. And to me, it's if you're not using it in your regular life, then why would you use it to tell a story about regular life?
Yeah, and I think this is interesting. You know, and maybe Dan, just have a. You've obviously been a pioneer in kind of cat years. You're probably 100 in the VR space, but you know, just tell us where you see that going in terms of consumer adoption and you know, as an enabler. Just tell us a little bit about that, because obviously that's one of your big sweet spots. But
I mean, it's been amazing to see the curiosity change from the beginning, our beginning 3.5 years ago. And we're in Los Angeles, so it's all around us, all, you know, the brands and the curiosity just grew from not caring to, oh my God, what is this new thing? And now it's really going to the next level where it's a real race right now in the VR community, in the big tech companies. You know, Apple now releasing the AR kit, which is going to change everything. You're going to see AR like a mofo coming up. So yeah, it's exciting for sure.
so I'm a big fan of sci-fi, and I actually, you know, it's kind of, you know, sci-fi is quite prescient when you think about what's obviously come, whether it was, you know, science fiction was written in the 70s, 60s, 80s, 90s, and, you know, kind of where we are today. And of course you have this, but it's kind of interesting that when you think of AI, you know, one of my favorites is, you know, Westworld, but you've got Ex Machina, which was recently out. You obviously the Spielberg movie called AI. You know, we see these possibilities of augmented reality and virtual reality. But do we think that now with AI being all over CES, every marketeer's got an AI application, whether it's a bot or whatever else? Watson is here with IBM. I think that actually Watson's DJing the IBM party tonight. So you know, we're apparently, you know, not really quite sure what music, but and on a serious note, but we are actually maybe facing, are we going to face a future? We've got Watson, we've got, you know, AI creating stories, we've got AI supposedly doing ads, we've got AI creating music. Is it ever going to be number one? What do we think? Is AI going to replace us? So Dean, do you think that AI is going to replace you or some of the people in your operations? Tell us a little bit about where you see this kind of artificial intelligence world going from your perspective.
Yes, AI, artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence. And I think that's sometimes the difference, right? And I think technology and how we integrate it into our lives versus how does it replace our lives, I think is where that's going to come down. And so that's kind of how we look at it, I think, a lot. And so we're really focused on that. Like you said, there's a lot of ways in, whether it's helping us with creative or whether that's helping us facilitate a car sale. There's a lot of different ways that we're looking at today to make sure that that augments what we're doing and not replacing what we're doing.
No, really well said. So Peter, you know, like, is this reality? You know, if Watson's going to create, you know, music, and I mean, could you conceive of a future where AI could be creating?
Well, I've always been skeptical of the whole DJ craze today because friends of mine are DJs and I don't quite know what they do. They plug into computers, you know, and they travel around the world with a hard drive. And so I've always been skeptical about who's really creating that music, and I think a lot of that electronic music we're hearing today is created by augmented intelligent pieces of equipment. You know, in movies, we still have to tell stories. We can use the technology. I have not yet to see a computer write a screenplay. I've yet to be, I haven't seen a computer direct a film. I suppose it will happen. I was in a Tesla that was being driven in Los Angeles 2 weeks ago by itself, and we almost died like 20 times. And had multiple panic attacks, and it didn't work at all. So I hope Hyundai lets us drive for a little bit longer. You know, we're clearly living in a time of great change with technology, but you know, I feel fortunate to still be able to, you know, write and direct movies. You know, and I'm a human being with blood and oxygen and all that kind of stuff in my system.
No, I think that's really well put. It's that opportunity. But Eric, what do you think? I mean, obviously there's this, you know, tech kind of tsunami kind of hitting marketing and media. When you say
want to sell your Tesla, I'll take it. I love it. I'm tired of it. But no, I think that it's interesting because at South by this year they had, I believe it was Watson that was enabling outdoor, where when you walk past it, if you kind of looked at the line and looked at it, and it's like, yeah, it read your facial expression, and it could just instantly change to another line that they had backed up, so that it was reading the crowd as it was coming past it. And I think that's kind of awesome to have that ability to engage, and then you just get it's really where down the road and currently right now where big data and creative kind of get together to complement each other and make us kind of smarter. But yeah, to have it replace writing and storytelling, I think to augment what we're doing.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because the construct, one of the great constructs, I guess, behind science fiction is you end up in this dystopian society. You know, these dystopian, where the robots have taken over, or you know, it's the Matrix, or it's Ex Machina. But what's interesting is that, you know, and of course we as psychologists, or as amateur psychologists, I guess the one thing that I hold great hope is that the human condition is such that we are adaptive. So what obviously science fiction doesn't necessarily always depict is how the human species, as you said, the oxygen in the blood in us all, is able to adapt to those circumstances. So I don't ever believe the machines will take over. I mean, they will augment, as you say, many aspects of art, and we will make some massive disasters. I'm sure there will be many more worse examples than our Nivea pooping seagull. But you know, along that road, we'll be discovering, I'm sure there will be magical moments as well. But I think that construct of maybe the science fiction introduction of being, you know, are we going to end up in a world where, you know, kind of robots take over and artificial intelligence? But I think that's a really nice opportunity to get everyone on the panel to talk a little bit about what's inspiring them at the moment, and hopefully inspiration that might have some, you know, use of technology and idea, but it's idea about the technology. Are there any things that you are utterly envious of at the moment, Eric, that you have been observing in kind of, and it doesn't have to be marketing, I mean, it can be from any walk of life, you know, but you know, things that like, you just say, shit, I wish I'd done that.
There's a lot of, especially being there, there's a lot of things you wish. One of the young creators we just hired did a campaign down in Peru, and there's a big highway down there that everybody takes to get from where they live to get to the beach. And so for their client down there, it was like a Home Depot type, Kmart type client. And they turned the entire highway into this QR code meets, I guess you'd call it just that. It brought all their products to life because all these outdoor boards. So as soon as you read with your phone the QR code on the board, suddenly a giant cooler would come over and you were driving under this cooler on the highway down to the beach. So it just was literally bringing to life the catalog that they offered, and really well done. It's something I very much enjoy. That's why I hired her.
And Peter, obviously, you know, I'm sure fellow directors are interesting, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, you probably know better than I do, but like James Cameron resisted making a film because he was trying to wait for the technology to catch up. Are there any things in filmmaking that are analogous to that in the next wave?
For me, you know, we talk about VR. Everybody that I know, all my colleagues talk about VR, and some of that we've talked about a lot. And I do look at that, and I think it's interesting that of all the VR I've seen, and I've seen quite a bit, from like pornography to video games, you know, and each had its merit for me. Each grew kind of boring and tedious at a certain point, but there was something. But I think the most emotional connection to anything that I've personally seen from VR was, we were talking earlier, the folks at Riot, I believe, took a VR array camera about the size of this table and put it in a Syrian refugee camp. And I watched it live. They put the glasses on, and I was watching live, and it was the emotional and visceral connection I had, and the amount of empathy that was generated. I mean, besides maybe the Hyundai spot, something to you know, we read about these camps and we feel, but to something just to be able to sit as long as you want in a refugee camp and kind of look up to the left and there's guys with guns, look to the right, there's 3 little children staring, look over there, there's, you know, 5 men just sitting, staring at the guy, and to be able to sit in that space was so visceral and emotional that it hit me and inspired me very much. And I think for me, that's the type of use that I could see as something that really helps people understand in a way that you just can't get reading a newspaper, you know, watching a news clip.
Understand each other.
Very powerful.
Yeah, and it's interesting in using the word empathy, I guess. Like, you know, some people liken the best use of VR as being almost like the VR as an empathy machine. You know, it does, because that was so powerful. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was chronicled by the New York Times as well, wasn't it? And they ran that series on the camp. It was absolutely outstanding.
It's mesmerizing. You just sit there for an hour and you're in a camp, and suddenly it's a whole new game.
Yeah, and I guess the thing is, that's the other thing, is that we read about things and the printed word suddenly doesn't get that emotional connection. And how many people are going to be in a Syrian refugee camp other than NGOs? So real human beings can be then in that situation rather than kind of statically reading or looking at a TV screen. That changes the dynamic. It's very, very interesting. So is there going to be more of that, do you think?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just what an amazing opportunity for brands or artists to connect with people.
Yeah.
By actually bringing them into your world. It's pretty insane.
So what are you working on, or what are you envying, like at the bleeding edge of kind of technology? Yeah.
Monterey Pop Fest.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
doing something very, very
Yeah.
interesting.
So this weekend was the 50th anniversary of the Monterey Pop International Fest.
Yeah.
Monterey International Pop Fest.
Which was like the first Coachella,
It was the first rock music festival in
Before Woodstock.
Before Woodstock, it was 1967. It was in Monterey. 200,000 people came to this small town of 20,000. Totally freaked everyone out. You know, all the flower children. And we're doing a documentary about that. So bringing people to that space. You know, we brought Lou Adler, who produced that. He produced the Mamas and Papas and managed them, and Carole King, Otis Redding, and all these artists. And we put you right on stage with him. And as he was talking to you, we have the slides coming in and pictures all around you. And he gave me all these assets of all these telegrams, like Jimi Hendrix. Hey Lou, I'm going to be there. What's my set time? All these telegrams are flying around you, and you could pick one, and it comes here, and then Lou reads it. Just interesting way to absorb information for documentaries, for brands. It's just going to be insane.
Experiential, yeah, in the moment, but live as well.
Yeah. And for education, oh my God,
yeah.
Kids are bored.
Dean, it's interesting, obviously. What's floating your boat at the moment in terms of just things that you're reading about, things that you've seen, or maybe even things that you aspire could happen, for brands. Tell us what's exciting you.
Yeah, I think going back to what we were saying earlier around where does technology come in and where does it really augment the experience? We spend a lot of time in automotive, seeing that the consumer shopping experience, i.e. Amazon, Whole Foods, it is just coming at us at full speed ahead with how consumers and their shopping experiences are changing. And we sit here in automotive. And automotive, I would say, has not evolved like a lot of other categories. And so how are we taking a look at, whether it's like Dan said, and how do we bring a test drive to life virtually and really put a test drive in someone's home? Or how do we really take the technology, like we have an app today that's just similar to Uber, and how do we bring the car to the consumer? And how do we bring the real car to the consumer? So it's a combination of both, right? How are we using new technology, or how are we taking an old process and having technology even make that even a stronger experience? And how do we still, and this is, I think, the Hyundai formula, how do we really make sure the physical salesperson is still the center of the situation and not put off to the side? And so to me, that's what is really taking a lot of my time and my thought process when it comes to technology, and how are we really applying it to our own business.
No, that's so well made, because again, even though this is the heart of, obviously CAN is creativity, and it's very interesting innovation, bringing technology and creativity together, I think is really interesting melting pot. But I think it's important to remember that we are the commercial creatives, and it's about how we can invent less friction, how can we do things that are innovative across that journey, the customer journey and stuff like that, with emotional content and sometimes very rational content, or services, let's put it that way, which I think is a really good point. So what's interesting, let's bring our friends from around the world back into the equation. We are so grateful, and again, thank you for all the technologists, thank you for CAN, and thank you again for the team to actually bring them in via our little friend here, the 360 camera. And we've actually had some questions, so I'm going to take some questions from the audience after this. But we had a great question, a question that came from Addis Ababa for Peter. And the question is, can you talk to how, you as a creator, you're a creator, you're a writer, how are you evolving as a result of technology? If you were to take your journey, are there any insights, deep personal insights about how it's evolved? I thought it was a really great question you know, someone as creative as you are?
For me, my creative process is, hinges upon research, and the deeper I'm able to dive into a subject, the more emotionally and personally connected I'll get, and hopefully the more that will translate. So to be able to go into a Syrian refugee camp, for example, if that's something I'm interested in, or to have these guys be able to take me into worlds that I just either can't physically get to, or I want to spend more time, that helps me with my research. And generally, the more I research and the deeper I go, the more in love with my material I find, the more inspired I become. So, whether it's something like the Lou Adler piece he did for Monterey Pop, it's just so profoundly emotional, and you get to do such a deep and unique dive where you're listening to Lou Adler talk about something, you look to your left and there's Jimi Hendrix laying his guitar on fire. That just helps you connect, and that technology for any artist is a way of becoming more deeply connected to the material. And I think that's where the inspiration comes from.
Interesting. A question for Eric, actually. It does take this community. At what points do you bring in the technologists when you've got an idea? Do you bring them in right at the beginning? How is it's evolving in terms of obviously being, because you're often a composer and a conductor, of the idea.
No, I think that's what we were talking about earlier. I think these days, creative mind has both the left and right brain, and they should know the tech. They're not going to invent it. Maybe they'll have an idea that creates the white space where you're like, well, what if we made a dome instead of, like you guys did? Like, we have to find a dome to use for the VR experience in 360. But so again, it just falls back into you have to come up with all kinds of stuff to feed the idea. But it's part of their DNA these days.
Yeah.
Much more than mine growing up in the business of about 25 years. So I feed on that.
So we do have a couple of microphones in the audience. I would like to take, before I hand over to Eric, who's got a lovely close, but any questions from the audience? That there's a question here in the front row. Yeah, great. Thank you.
I just got a question for Peter. If you have any words of wisdom for aspiring filmmakers?
Yeah, I think every filmmaker is different. Obviously James Cameron has a very technological approach. I go back to storytelling. If you want to be a filmmaker, you really have to have a deep connection, a really, really deep connection to whatever. So I think writing is very important. If you don't write, find a writer, find a short piece of material that you feel deeply connected to, and hold on to that. Let that be your North Star. And then these guys, or you can find these guys, and there's not that many of them that are that good, but there are a few of them. And you don't need. I always say, like, I made a decision a long time ago to not be as smart as these people are. Like, they're smarter than me, but I want them on my team. But first and foremost, I want to be able to tell the story. So I say, don't get too seduced by what these guys do. They're a great asset, but you have to have a personal connection to the story you want to tell if you want to be a filmmaker.
Any other questions from the? Thank you. That was a great question. Any other questions? Well, I want to, before I hand over to Eric, I want to thank Dean, who we are so sad you're not here in Cannes. But Vegas, say hello to Vegas for us, and thank you for getting up so early. You're an amazing client. Thank you. Amazing because you get up before 4 in the morning. I want to thank the panel. I mean, obviously, what rock stars up here, Dan and Peter, so special for Peter to come to Cannes for this, and Eric for having this inspiration and the idea to do this panel, and actually the provocation of tech guys, and I think that's great. So, and last but not least, all the team at InOcean who really behind the scenes made this happen. Not only made the Super Bowl happen, but obviously Eric's team here in the front row, but all the people who behind the scenes were just making this happen. In fact, 2 people flew to Vegas to be with Dean to make sure that we can actually link him in, and that was, so anything is possible, in Eric's words. But Eric, let me hand it over to you to kind of do a close.
You know, I think we made it the point that we wanted to, because it's the way we approach our work, it's the way we live within this business. But as a fun little way to end it, we did a little film. It's a little, I think, after any kind of an Oscars or so, you always want to pay homage to what has come before you. And I think that's basically what this is as you walk out. It's just a fun way to say thanks for the tech in the past, and we look forward to what's coming in the future.
Can everyone wave to Ethiopia as well?
Yeah.
Give Ethiopia a wave. This is 360, they're watching it in VR, as well as at schools throughout every continent, bar Antarctica. So next year we're going to come back and we're going to go Antarctica. Play film.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night. TV's broken wings and learn to fly. All your life, you were on waiting for this moment to arrive. Singing in the dead of night. TV's broken wings and learn to fly. All your life, you were on waiting for this moment to rise. You were on waiting for this moment to rise.
What an amazing session. We're going to take a short break, but if you want to come back at 2, Digitas LBI are going to be asking the question, can data make us funnier? I hope it can, I need the help. And we're going to have a robot on stage, so not to be missed. See you soon.
I got it.
How are you, sir? Good job, brother.
There they are.